Welcome to the Mawazo Ideas podcast, where we delve into the inspiring journeys and groundbreaking research of African women researchers shaping the future of the continent. Previously known as the Nairobi Ideas podcast, the Mawazo Ideas podcast goes beyond the research, featuring untold stories from brilliant African women researchers from across the continent. We delve into their everyday realities, their challenges and triumphs, and the solutions they are pioneering for a brighter African future. So tune in every week to explore their innovative ideas, discuss their impact on the continent's development, and celebrate African women's contribution to academia, innovation, and society at large. With me today, we've got a powerhouse and thought leader who's been thinking deeply about good governance and about evidence-based policy making for the better of the continent. Thank you for joining us. Yes. It is so lovely to have you. We've already been chatting away this morning, and there's just so much I feel like we can learn from you.
Well, it's really awesome to be in this space and to know that you do such great work. Every time I see innovative ideas like this, I kind of feel that outside of the many things that don't make us happy about our continent, we actually are building some important formations. And I think that spaces like this really signal the kind of excellence we could have as a people.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that vote of confidence in what we're doing. That's what we want to do. We want to change the continent for the better in whatever little way we know how.
Yes.
In this case, working with African women researchers.
Indeed.
You have such an extensive bio, and I don't want to go into all the details of it, but you have been, I think in 2015, you were Time 100 Most Influential People. That same year, you were also 25 Women in Impact by New York Times. The list can go on and on and on and on. We've heard your wonderful speech that you did at the World Economic Forum in 2019. It was just so beautiful to hear such real words and real language and real call to action that is needed. And we are thankful for your fighting spirit and
You're
fighting
very kind.
words.
You're very kind.
Thank you so much. Now, getting into research and government on the continent.
More exciting topic.
I would love to start with just understanding what is your kind of history with research. What was your academic background? Have you delved in kind of like the academic sector in some way?
Yeah. So I had trained as a chartered accountant, and but I was one of those crazies, right, that couldn't stay calm in the face of poor governance of my country under military rule. So I was quite a voice for the advancing of governance. And so I would demand for accountability from the military. And they would say to my mom, and then later to my husband, is she suicidal? Why wouldn't this girl just face being a professional that she is? So I was very active. I was an active citizen. Still am very active as a citizen. So what happened was that activist interest of demanding accountability got me into interesting spaces of interest for promoting governance. And so at that stage, I became one of the global co-founders of Transparency International. I was one of the youngest 3 people that co-founded what ended up becoming such a formidable international non-governmental body that has really made the issue of tackling corruption an important agenda for the world. And so in that wise, it got to the point where Transparency International had to ask me to leave home because the situation had degenerated badly. And so I went over to Germany and had to be the voice for demanding for accountability from the military. The reason that they took me out of harm's way was we witnessed the assassination of the wife of a man who had been elected as president and whose election was annulled, and he was put in jail. And I was at some point the leader of a group known as Concerned Professionals that brought out professionals from industry and practice who, for the first time, middle class professionals were on the streets demanding that the military should just go and recognize the duly elected gentleman. And so, being at the Office of Transparency International in Berlin ultimately changed the direction that I was going to take. And I began to seek to pursue my PhD in international law at King's College London. Okay. While I was in Berlin, a program called Leaders in Development by the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard was offered me, and I went for that program. At that program, I met a woman who basically changed my direction, Baroness Shirley Williams. She's now dead. She was the first Minister of Education of Britain. Wow. Yeah. And she was a professor, one of the most intelligent women ever. She was a professor. In fact, she was supposed to have been the first female Prime Minister of Britain, but for the fact that the Labour Party disintegrated and she went with one group, and that really affected her political trajectory. So Shirley Williams loved me so much in her class at the Leaders in Development program and said to me, Obi, it's not international law that your continent needs from you. Your continent needs you in public policy, especially economic policy. And that was how I changed my direction and focused on public policy with a special focus on economic policy. So I started schooling there, and then I also began to work for Jeffrey Sachs, the world-renowned Jeffrey Sachs. And so research became a part of my life. And evidence-based policymaking became the center of my career. Because afterwards, I went home at the turn of transition when democracy returned to Nigeria. I went home to help fix the public procurement system. And I was supposed to be there for just 18 months, but I ended up being there for 6.5 years, during which time I then occupied different positions and was part of President Obasanjo's economic team, and then was Minister of Minerals, Minister of Education. And in all that research, evidence-based policy was the driver of the success that we had, So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. There's so much richness in that
And then,
story.
of course, when I left government and went on to become the vice president of the World Bank for Africa region, I was at the center of research. I ran a team of almost 2,000 people and researchers in every aspect of economy and society, but especially economy. So economic studies work that the team would have to produce annually range from anything between 200 to 250. So, because we have to research into the sectors of countries, economies, and their social as well as human capital landscape. So, research on infrastructure research, human capital research, macroeconomic research, institutions building research and studies. So I was basically swimming in research findings to enable the right kinds of policy choices for each country. A number of the things that we did with Kenya, for example, had to do with the power sector. The pivoting Kenya's energy future toward renewable options, way ahead. I'm talking about the early 2000s, right? So or the research we had to do looking at regional trade and the role of the EAC for Kenya, the East Africa Commission. A community, the East Africa community, and what regional trade corridors mean, and the kind of interactions that are important between the public sector and the private sector in order to enable economic growth through deepened productivity of each of the economies within the community. So research is at the heart of it. Or the kind of thing we do, the research around agricultural production and productivity. So you look at our massive investment in East Africa agriculture research and productivity project. And looking at the matter of seedlings and how to build a different system of research that gives us directions in terms of what climate change was doing to soil in East Africa and how to vary the seedlings to ensure that food chain is not disrupted because we're not paying attention. So, so I this is to say that my history with research is a very strong one.
I mean, it's a common thread. I mean, the research and evidence to do policies it has been how you've been doing things and how it should be done. So thank you for sharing that. And I love the fact that it was another woman, another woman who helped to kind of plant the seed and kind of like say, okay, actually, maybe, this is...
She could see my competences she could better than I could see them.
Exactly. It's beautiful. And I think that's what especially women in leadership positions can do. They see things and they're able to foresee things and kind of guide you in this case in a direction that has led to the impacting so many people's lives.
Yes, so correct.
So thank you for sharing
it's
that.
interesting how often when we say how do women in position matter, or what are the reasons we think that women in leadership position or places of influence matter. It's exactly what happened with between Shelley Williams and I, right? So because if you thought of it, that was role modeling. She was a person of influence who modeled, what that, I saw her in class and I lit up. And she found me engaging. And so she took a deeper interest in me. Exactly. And then she's suddenly into my choices of a future. And then she speaks a word and says, no, forget King's College London, this school here at the Kennedy School. Apply to the Kennedy School. She says, you will get in.
I love that. She saw something beyond what you could see for yourself.
The older ones become the mentors of the younger ones. we're not sufficient enough ourselves. We must grow the community.
Exactly.
We must grow the community.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
those who have gone ahead have a duty.
Exactly. And I think as women, we do that. It comes to us almost, it comes from deep inside us to help others and help, especially other women, other girls along with us. And thank you for sharing that.
And, I am the chair of the board of women political leaders in Brussels.
Oh, wow.
It's the global body that women who are former presidents, former prime ministers, parliamentarians, and in cabinet positions around the world belong to it. So it's the basis of what's known as the Reykjavik Forum that holds in Iceland, trying to bridge the gap between women in political leadership and their male counterparts. And one of the major things that we push for is the idea of intergenerational conversations between the older generation of women who have beaten down barriers that were seeking to stop them, and therefore have lessons that they can teach.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I really would love to now delve a bit more into understanding how policy in particular is either hindering or supporting the implementation of research on the continent. So the utility of research.
Yes. The political incentives on our continent haven't particularly enabled research. The political incentives on our continent have been distorted. So there was a time when, if you looked at the Kenyan public sector, the public service, the civil service, what you would find would be strong agglomeration of technical skills, because analysis, policy formulation could not happen without very strong analytical underpinnings. And those underpinnings had to be anchored on research. And so research institutions were established, both within and outside of government. Then came an era when the politics declined in its quality. And it affected the civil service, the bureaucracy. And so a distortion happened at that time that has persisted even up until now. Any real intellectual focus on determining how to decide what government would do, whether in the form of policy or in the form of public investment in producing the basic goods and services of the state that citizens and businesses need, became relegated to the background. And so what would happen is that decisions would be made on the basis of anecdotes. People would think, well, I think this is a good idea. And then money would be sunk into it. And you see it produce dismal outcomes. Dismal impact. That is why you would look at sectors that, your country, other countries of our continent, my country, Nigeria, areas of comparative advantage, natural comparative advantage, we don't gain competitive advantage in them simply because of the gap between, the decisions that are being made and the kind of evidence that research could have generated to inform better policy directions. So this gap, this disconnect is very costly. So for researchers on our continent, they were lost in their ivory towers for too long. They didn't realize that they were becoming marginalized in contributing to development. They were comfortable to stay in their cocoon and continue to produce research pieces that made it to journals, especially journals abroad. That was a great thing. but of what benefit and of what value? Yes. How do you produce the best of research findings, and yet your country has no use of it?
Exactly.
Does not even see the relevance of it. So fixing that requires the researchers coming out of their silos and to say, how do we reconnect to society? How do we become part of the demand for better governance? Because we need better governance in order to have the kinds of leaders within the public service, within government, that would say, I cannot make this decision if I do not know what research has shown to be what works and what does not work.
And how to, on one end, it's arming the researchers with the tools and the knowledge and know-how and opportunities for engaging with policymakers. Yes. But is there also something that policymakers need to consider and think about to open up that conversation and build that bridge?
Yes, but you see, that's why I talked about political incentive. What do they lose in not doing that? Yes. That's the problem we're in. We're stuck in that. Political incentives determine whether the policy maker would be looking for the researcher. If they did not look for the researchers and made shoddy policy choices for many decades, they're not going to just sort of like get some, divine inspiration to start doing that. So we have to understand that nothing happens that is not made to happen.
Okay.
Yes. So now we identify that this is a problem. It then means that as research community, just investing in the pathway to influencing who becomes the policy maker is an important part of our backward integration or forward integration, as the case may be, to society.
Yes.
We can no longer sort of say we're hoping that a good policymaker would emerge that would understand why the work we do is we can't stay back and that's learned helplessness.
Exactly.
And we don't need that.
Exactly.
So we do need to build a research community that is influential enough that a policy person in agriculture, for example, will not carry some silly bunch of ideas to the Senate, to the Parliament, without knowing that the research community will come after him or her and say, what's that nonsense you're trying to do? So he or she then realizes, these people are using their voice. That's where I'm going. The researchers have not used their voice. They write their pieces and they just love to stay in their community and enjoy the intellectual stimulation that comes from having conversations amongst themselves.
It's not enough.
But you need to use your voice.
It has to go beyond there.
It's powerful voice. It's voice that produces quality work. But that quality work, you sit on it, there's no incentive on the part of today's politicians and policymakers who are, in fact, responding to the incentive of the politicians. And the politicians are saying, I'm in a hurry to make a decision. I think this is what we should do. The policymaker is fretting and not wanting to upset the politician.
Right.
And so they don't turn back and say, if I stepped in this direction, the research community is going to come after me. Why? Because you've never come after them. You're not thinking collectively of your power.
Yes.
And, just engaging even the society with alternative views of policy directions.
Yes, exactly.
That's an important way.
Exactly.
You've got to grow your political muscles.
Yes. Yeah, in some way, it's almost what we're asking of researchers on our continent is to have some of that activism spirit and power.
Even if you don't have it, partnerships work.
Yes.
So not looking down on civil society groups, but empowering them with empirical evidence. They could be they're like your outsourcer, your outsourcing, partners, right? In the sense that you produce and then you've got them understanding your findings. And then they become the ones that are putting it out in very easy language that the public can understand and say, this is the latest research on Kenyan tea. And when they are listening to them, they're seeing their fellow human being. They're not seeing some intellectual, person speaking the language that only they understand. So just being more collaborative, understanding the power of cooperation, and realizing that what we want in order for impact to be great is scaled action. Scaled action. We have areas of competitive advantage, right? So burden sharing is an important part of understanding competitive advantage. So you're the researchers, you have this product. There's this whole civil society activists that are interested on issues of health, issues of education, issues of agriculture, issues of the climate. You got to build a natural prolongation of your relevance through them to the society.
And would you say it's imperative and important for researchers on the continent, particularly on the African continent, to go in with that mindset, almost having a mantra of like, I'm doing this research for the greater good, and I should reach out.
Absolutely.
And I should,
of course, it's not every. Let's not be unrealistic. There's some research that would just be good to know. Just a piece of good work that is done. But Africa cannot afford for that to be the majority of the portfolio of our research, right? The portfolio of our research would have to be mostly research that have real implications for policy choices, for industry, for enterprise. Policies, because we're lagging behind so badly that, and the whole conversation that we keep having, we want African solutions to African problems. Where's that going to come? You want to give us some anecdotal solutions?
Exactly.
When say, Malaysia found a scientific solution and it worked for them, but we want to do an anecdotal solution because it is an African solution. That's nonsense.
Exactly. It has to be practical. It has to be has to be real. And I wonder to what extent the lack of funding to support research plays in this.
So major.
I think we said
0.01% public investment in research.
And we were hoping to be at 1, right?
0.01% of our GDP is what goes into public investment in research and development. Global
is 1.7.
1.7. Where are you going with that? That's pittance.
Exactly.
So and we know that government has most resources to invest on a steady cost basis on research. So we really must penetrate the mind of the political class to see the value of research. And I go back again to the fact that you have to raise your influence quotient.
And speaking of government, I think unlike any other continent on the planet, Africa, our governments are the main employer for a lot of researchers. What is that saying? The fact
it's also saying that governance has not worked well. If governance has worked well, then there would be more options. And look at a lot of researchers end up in industry, in European and American, even especially in China. There's hardly any sector in China where there is not a whole component of research. And they are really part of the leadership of these organizations. So the researcher is a leader in these other jurisdictions. And we somehow haven't governed well enough for policies to have enabled the diversification of our of our economies.
Yeah.
So our economies are remaining narrow. When you look at Africa's contribution to global trade, it's about 3%. On a good day. On not so good a day, it's true.
Yeah.
If we decided that, okay, let the researchers focus on the things that we can trade amongst ourselves, for example. Because we now have Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It's the largest trade area in the world today. But how much of economic activities can we see that we go on within it? How do we then incentivize the research community working with government to understand that it's important to know what shall we be trading amongst ourselves on? Where are the areas of our specializations? And what must we do to boost the productivity so that across boundaries we're achieving scale? And then on the basis of the scale opportunities, we're attracting massive investments. That's a research issue.
Exactly. I mean, it goes back to that, right? Even if we're talking about researchers having a duty to try and push for their voices in policy space so that we can have these policies improve and therefore improve, the kind of trickle-down effect of that.
You could just have researchers that write to the AU, for example, and say, show us the research that underpinned XYZ. You're starting a conversation. But to just simply say, we're waiting for the day sensible people will come and ask us. You've become complicit in the state of the continent, But I am especially interested in the fact that when we even have research teams, the women do not get the visibility. And so it's important that we should make a case for representation because it matters.
It does.
Representation matters. So we do need to make sure that research teams will always have women as part of them. And that when the roll call of those who did that research is being presented, they must be high up on the list.
Exactly.
Because then it makes more women want to be in the sciences, right? We need more women into sciences. Everything about achieving gender parity through STEM or even through STEAM, as the case may be, is at the heart of ensuring that the girls of today are not seeing science as a mystery box that they cannot attempt to enter.
Exactly.
We need to start very early with our girls.
And at the same time, I think we also have a duty to change that box a bit. I feel like the box is not really made to fit us. So,
I said to the girls, smash the box.
Yes.
Like usually, I meet a young woman and she says to me, oh, Auntie Obi, I'd love to be like you. And I say, no. That's such a low ambition. Your vision should be, don't go with ambition. Ambition takes you nowhere. Your vision should be that I want to be greater than Auntie Obi. Then we've started. All right. And then they say something like, that's why I try to think outside the box. And I say, if they ever say that to you again, tell them, I see no box. Where's the box?
Yes.
I don't see the box. Because that's when innovation happens. It's not about thinking outside the box. What box? I didn't even see a box.
Exactly.
So I'm not planning to think outside of it. I see no box. That has to be the way that your generation of women, you have to be fearless. The fearlessness that comes. The researcher is, of course, a curious person. But in order to generate the sense of curiosity, there's a fearlessness. What if what 100%. I find, is really scary? And yet you say, I want to find out. There's something about the fearlessness spirit that we need for innovation. For building diversity of ideas. And the more the ideas for us, ideas hub. That's why I like the space, for example, because as the women in research are coming around, connecting into virtual groups, are solving problems together, ideas are being generated, incubating those ideas and just accelerating them.
Exactly.
That is the way we succeed.
Yeah.
And if we succeeded in one thing, then there is a second thing that says, maybe we can succeed. And from 2, we go to 10. Exponentially, we're increasing. And then there is a spread of a certain way of doing things.
Exactly.
That's what institution is.
Yes.
The way we do things.
Yeah.
We want to do things from the lens of the women in research in Africa.
Yes.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Thank you for, you're completely supporting and you've completely framed exactly what we're trying to do at Mawazo, because there is such power in women,
Incredible.
in African women.
Incredible.
And there's such power in those who are in the research space. They have a certain way of thinking and a certain grit about them that is so incredibly fascinating.
It is fascinating.
And exciting, and so powerful.
When a woman knows her stuff, it's powerful.
Yes.
The world, the society tries to say to a woman, don't let it be seen of you that you know what you're talking about. That's what society, it's perverse incentive. It's like, you're going to be a great woman if people don't think that you threaten them by your brilliance. And a lot of the women in research, they don't need to let anybody know they are brilliant. It already self-selected them, right? Because they invested themselves intellectually, they engaged, and so they've generated knowledge. The basis of being a researcher and being recognized as one is that there's a quality of work that your mind has produced for the world. So just trying to shrink in order that every other person can be comfortable, that shouldn't be you.
No.
You're not a shrinking violet.
No.
So you end your voice through the rigor, the intellectual rigor.
Yeah.
So we now need to elevate that a bit more and say, hey, we could do much more with this.
Yeah.
And that's impact. We're crying for impact. We're in a hurry.
We are.
We're in a hurry.
Yeah.
We can't be in a society, in a continent where we are the stunting amongst children.
Yeah.
We're the highest.
Yeah.
A low literacy rate amongst children who are even in school. We're the highest in the world. Women still dying at childbirth. We're the highest. Come on. We can't stay in our cocoons. We can't stay in our privileges. And think, let's take our time. There's no time to take.
No.
We've got to be in a hurry. And that's where, when I say that small is no longer beautiful. Small is no longer beautiful. Oh, yeah. Hey, hello, world. I'm doing great. That's nonsense. We are doing great. And then we energize the things that we're doing even more. And before you know it, we're changing.
Exactly.
Yes, we're changing things. We're changing things.
That power of the collective.
Power of the collective. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And women naturally are networked, but we then don't, we waste a lot of the value of the network.
Okay.
And that's because we're not connecting the dots.
Right.
Well.
Okay.
The researchers can help women connect the dots better.
Yeah.
Some of your research findings need to find existing women groups that would be the foot soldiers for what happens next to the findings, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, the interest from women's group, from feminist activists on the continent is there. They see it. And I think, it's on to us now to
really engage.
Reach out and
engage.
To
not think that that's a waste of your time.
No.
It cannot be.
No, it cannot be. It cannot be.
Building collaborations takes time.
Yeah.
It's worth investing
and it's
worth it. Yeah. One of the things I say to people is we often think of resources in terms of money as being the number one thing. I think of resources differently. My number one resource is partnerships.
Yes.
So you as women researchers must cultivate the skills of building massive canvases of partners. Partners unlock opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine.
Exactly.
So for each of your research areas to go further with them, you need to sort of have a canvas of who could be our partners with this set of findings we have. And they would come to the table because you're a collective.
Yes.
Can you imagine, an industry that knows that there are these African female researchers collective, and this is the vast area of work that they have done. We want to see the CEO. How dare he not see you?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I mean, and this is something that we are realizing is one of the most powerful things. The partnerships, like even the few partnerships that we're already building now, have been so critical to seeing the women we support like doing fantastic work and transcending the ivory tower, transcending academy into
So my number one resource is partnerships. My number two resource, knowledge. That's research. There we go. You got it. It's right with you.
Yeah.
And then before finance comes as a distant number three.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obi. Thank you, Auntie Obi. Thank you. I want to just close off. I want to hear just a reflection on one part around. I mean, I think you've touched on things that you're very proud of, but if you can highlight maybe one or two things that have really, that you carry so deep in your heart in terms of initiatives you've done.
Yes.
I'd love to hear.
Yes. Yeah. I start with the current one that I am doing, which is the, creating schools of public policy, politics, policy, and governance across the continent. It's the reason that we're in Nairobi this week, right? Because we launched yesterday the Kenya SPPG, that is the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance Kenya.
Nice.
We already have the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance, the SPPG, the first one in Nigeria. That's 4 years old now.
Nice.
We launched the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance Senegal last year. So Nigeria graduated its fourth cohort in October, earlier in this October. Senegal is graduating its first cohort in January. Kenya is on that, they will probably start admitting in the new year.
Oh, fantastic.
And then school starts in April. We're designing that of Ghana and then Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
So why did I get in that after retirement from corporate work?
Yeah.
Because we would completely not go anywhere reasonable as a continent until we can change the quality of political leadership.
Yes.
So we're building a massive critical base of new political leaders.
Fantastic.
And drawing them from private sectors, public sector, international development, civil society, the professions. Average age of the people we're training and releasing into the political space is 36, 37.
Oh, wonderful.
So these are people, we're interested in disrupting Africa's politics.
Yes.
Because we know that without it, we can't get good governance.
Exactly.
So enough of complaining that we don't have good leaders.
Exactly.
Now we must, design. We have designed what a good political leader will be. It will be a leader that's been trained to have character, competence, and capacity.
Yeah.
So we're
love it.
We're doing that.
Yes.
So in the Nigerian school, we graduated 160 of such people in 2021. 134 of them in 2022. 185 of them in 2023. And in the recent graduation of the fourth cohort, we graduated 235 of them.
Wow.
Our journey is to annually, for each of the countries that we set up SPPG, graduate 500 such people.
Wow.
So your politics will be,
critical mass.
Will be overflowing with, so that when the citizens understand their power to determine the quality of their politics, they wouldn't be going for people who do not value research. Because our school is an evidence-based policy school.
Thank you.
So that's one of the things giving me incredible joy at this time. And then there are many other things, including the role that I have as the chief cheerleader for having more women in politics around the world.
Yes,
wonderful. The women political leaders. And then I serve on a number of university boards.
Wow.
And just seeing this generation pursue knowledge.
Yes.
It gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Well,
and I continue to be a voice for transparency, accountability, and good governance at all levels of governance.
Yeah. And thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. And thank you for setting up this school.
Yes.
I'm just curious to know if how it looks with men and women in the school.
When we first started, we started and we wanted a 50-50 equality school, right? The women were not that much that applied.
Yeah.
We worked hard and got about 23% of female students in the first class. Worked harder for the second class. It increased to something of about 29%. Worked harder for the third class. It jumped to about 37%. Worked even harder for the class of 2024. And suddenly we're at 43%. So it's part of the kind of evidence that enables us to say to people who say, we couldn't find the women, go look for them.
Yes, they're there.
Look for them in the right places.
Exactly.
You'll find them.
Exactly. They're there. They're there. And I mean, that's great. I mean, I guess seeing that increase also shows for women, at times seeing other women doing it is such a motivation for us.
Yes. When I ran for president, a number of the younger women said, when Antiope could agree to do politics, I can do politics. And that gave me the greatest joy.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. It's the power of emulation.
Yes.
And that's why we must hold ourselves to, we shouldn't allow it to be the world holding us to the highest standard. It must come from us.
Exactly.
We must set the standard and beat our own standards.
Yes,
because that power of emulation is important for growing, a larger size of women, well represented in all aspects of life. Because the research evidence is also there that societies that have more inclusive spaces of governance, of business, do better.
Yes.
You find them at the top of the global league table more than you find the ones that think that the women should disappear somewhere and when we need you, we'll call you.
Exactly.
The women are saying, we're needed. We're right here.
Yeah. And I mean,
society needs us.
They do. And the data and the research and the evidence is there. That it's not that, we need to support women for the empowerment of women. No. You need us.
It's not, I always say that it's not soapy and sentimental, argument. It is hard fact.
Yes.
So this whole thing about, just being persuaded by data. It makes our school, it's my mantra. Now it's the school's mantra, that in God we trust. Every other person must bring data. If you think,
love it.
If I say to you that having women at the table matters for growth, and you say to me, no, it doesn't matter. I need your data because I'm bringing mine along with my statement. That's why we need the women in research.
Exactly.
Because they can, find these hard facts for us. They can find the data. They can empirically establish causation and correlation in ways that would arm us with what we need for persuasive argument. And then we say to the people who are listening to us, if you're reasonable, you should be persuaded by evidence.
Exactly.
Not by anecdotes or cultural norms.
Exactly. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Auntie Obi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
This is giving us so much energy to continue doing what we're doing and fighting the good fight every day.
I draw a lot of my energy from your generation. People say to me, you're so energetic. I say, be a friend of the younger ones.
Yeah. I'm glad I can offer that to you.
Yes.
But thank you for all that you do. Continue. We're behind you.
Thank you.
Supporting you in everything you do.
Excellent.
And the change you want to see. We want to see the same change for this continent.
Yes.
We deserve it.
Yes.
Our people deserve it.
Yes.
Our natural resources deserve it.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You.
And I am just looking forward to the kind of ways that you will be unstoppable. Just a generation of unstoppable women.
Yes.
You said, oh, there's a barrier. You kick it.
Exactly.
Kick it.
We're ready. We're ready.
Sure. All right, my dear. What a pleasure to talk with you.
You too. Thank you.